Welcome back, everybody. It is 9 o'clock and the ANC is launching its election manifesto at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban today, and we continue to give you rolling coverage of the build-up to the manifesto launch.
All right, let's now cross to KZN, where Sakina Kamwendo is standing by, as well as Bongi Wezwane. Ladies, a very good morning to you.
Coming to you live from the Moses Mabhida Stadium here in KwaZulu-Natal, as we are looking forward to hear what the ANC is tabling as part of its manifesto. There's quite a lot to talk about. They're finding themselves in a difficult position. A lot of polls, of course, suggesting that they may continue on a decline when it comes to the elections. So as the ANC then looks forward then to table its promises to the South Africans, we will bring you a blow-by-blow account as to what exactly are they promising, and take a look back in history as to where some of the promises made in fact fulfilled. Thank you so much for joining us for this special broadcast. My name is Bongi Wezwane, and I'm not alone. Sakina is here with us.
Good morning, Bongiwe. And of course, we are covering as the SABC quite a few of these major party. And when I say major, I mean the big five that we will be doing special broadcasts on. But of course, back at Moses Mabhida, we were here for the EFF manifesto launch. We will be back in 2 weeks' time again for the Inkatha Freedom Party's manifesto launch. KZN is going to be a battleground. And the ANC obviously recognizing that. They're telling us that we are expecting around 150,000 people here today, drove past the overflow area, so they are expecting people to come in their droves.
And it's interesting, Sakina, because you talk about KwaZulu-Natal being the battleground, and interestingly enough, when you look at the dynamics of this particular province, there's now the MK party that has also come in, and you think about how that could also change the dynamic as well, because the IFP, for example, was looking to reclaim its former glory.
Well, it's definitely going to be a factor, because in KZN, you have the EFF that is growing in this province. It's one of their stronger provinces is KZN. You've got the entrance of MK, which if you go by the by-election, the Valentine's Day by-election in Upongolo, it is clear that they will be a factor in KZN. And of course, then you've got the ANC and the IFP, which is right back in the ascendancy in KZN. So the ANC knows that it has its work cut out in KZN with the loss of Msholozi and also many other stalwarts that previously may have been able to perhaps steer the party to a winning direction, but questions are being asked about the current ANC leadership in the province and whether they are strong enough. Of course, they will have the support of national leadership, but it's going to be a critical province for the ANC, not just because, you know, of the dynamics on the ground, but because also in terms of sheer numbers when it comes down to elections, what KZN has to bring to the table.
And Sakina, you also think about the fact that they now will have to put together lists. And one thing, you know, even back to one of their veterans, Mvuso Msimang, who resigned and also came back to the party saying that they've promised that their list will resemble something different than what we would have seen in previous times. But when you look at whether or not right now we're still waiting for the outcomes of disciplinary processes for those 97 members, at the same time we're still waiting to hear how their list is going to be formatted despite the guidelines that have now already been presented. A lot of people are saying it's all good and well to put together machinery, to put together whatever it is that you're trying to promise the voters, but ultimately the voters will want to see who would you like to send into positions of leadership.
Well, that is true, but of course the ANC has bigger fish to fry before then, because before they even deploy people, they have to actually win the number of seats to which they can deploy those cadres. And of course, the Zandile Kumete factor here in KZN, the step-aside rule, it is said the ANC has stepped aside from its step-aside rule in KZN. As far as Zandile Kumete is concerned, of course, that has drawn some criticism from other parts. You know, I was reading something that Danny Msiza was saying out in Limpopo, like questioning some of these these decisions. But it's going to be an interesting one because the ANC understands. They know that they need to pull out all the stops. Behind me here, out of my peripheral view, there's a Palestine flag. The minorities in KZN obviously are also going to come into play in a big way because it is such contested terrain. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But the people are streaming in.
And as they stream in, Sakina, also one thinks back to, the MK party going into their previously stronghold, KwaXimba, and having droves of people there. And you also saw the ANC also going to that very area, which also signals as well that on the ground, there is now a scramble. On the ground, there is now a fight to make sure that they also win the hearts and the minds of the voters in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The Democratic Alliance as well doesn't want to be left behind. You were covering their manifesto as well, and they're also looking at the province like KwaZulu-Natal in order for them to also be able to make some inroads.
Of course they do. The Democratic Alliance and the IFP seem to come to some sort of agreement whereby, where the IFP is meant to be stronger, they will take a step back, and there is an agreement with regard to the pact that they will obviously maximize on whatever both parties get. KwaXimba, of course, is very interesting because the ANC has to go there. MK knows that the ANC may be on the back foot in an area like KwaXimba, given some of these service delivery issues. The water issue, for example, in KwaXimba. This week, again, protests are plenty. But of course, the ANC says it's due to the floods that they've experienced in the area. But the reality is KwaXimba was not hit by those floods. So it's again going back to perhaps service delivery that should have happened, that didn't happen, that's now coming back. And I think MK trying to capitalize on that.
And one of the things that's also quite interesting is how they keep saying all these different things. I was interviewing the Minister of Water and Sanitation, who's their deployee as well, Senzo Mchunu, who said that when it comes to some of the issues that he's seeing on the ground, the residents of Phoenix as well as Verulam were protesting, but he says some of the areas is not as a result of flooding. Some of the areas is as a result of poor infrastructure, which was not maintained over time. And then they set deadlines that they're going to be able to try and fix some of the water issues. Come the deadlines, they miss them twice. And then you also are, left with frustrated residents who are saying that if you are going to be talking tough, especially when you look back at their manifesto in 2019, you talk about service delivery, how you're prioritizing it, and also at the same time how economic recovery is to be spurred on. But some of the residents saying that those promises are not trickling to them on the ground.
Yeah, it raises quite a few questions in terms of the communication. You have national from the side of Minister Mchunu making certain promises and giving deadlines to those promises here in eThekwini, only for the eThekwini Metro to say, actually, 2 days before the deadline, we're not going to meet those deadlines. And it raises questions about, how did we then get to this point where these promises were made? So it's going to be interesting. Does it speak to a deeper consternation within the higher echelons of the African National Congress? I don't know if this is a definitive reason to actually point to something like that. But it does seem that, there is a recognition that things need to be done, and perhaps the capacity to do it may not quite be there.